Welcome back, one and all, to a rather controversial but enlightening coin rating here on the Culture of Currency. Today we have another coin from the country of Cameroon. My last Cameroon silver coin video looks like this and is over one of my favorite African coins, the silver cheetah. I went over a bit of the culture and history of Cameroon in that video, so I will link it here and in the description below, as today we talk about a more interesting and relevant topic in relation to this coin. This of course will be significant, as our discussion of the cultural significance is a graded area. So hold on as we dive into this Imperial Dragon of Cameroon. On the front of this coin we have the traditional coat of arms, which I went into some detail in the Cheetah video, so to value your time, I will dive straight into the China-Cameroon connection. The first area I want to discuss is what we are looking at here. We have an Imperial Dragon that hails from the Ming Dynasty in its form. The reason I know that is due to an art exhibit in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Check out the similarities. This is a tray that is believed to be during the reign of the Jiajing Emperor of China. The years that this would be in reference would be in a range from 1507 to 1567, so this is rather equivalent to the Renaissance period in Europe. Just like my last video, which was over the Great Wave, we have another example of Asian art. In this case, the art is from China and is replicated almost perfectly on this coin. We also get a crisp rendition of the Mandarin characters that translate to mean lift up or supporting of the emperor. Now that you know what you're looking at, the next big question we must answer is why? We learned in our last video that Fiji and Japan, though far away, have strong diplomatic relations going back to the founding of Fiji as an independent nation. So what do China and Cameroon share in common? Well, in almost the exact years Fiji's independence, Cameroon started a diplomatic relationship with China. The year was 1971. Though these ties were forged in the 70s, travel of diplomats were not frequent until the 2000s. Many countries in Africa also have the same type of negotiations with China. Here is how the trade works from my eyes. China spends billions in Cameroon, and Cameroon stands in accordance with China in many international affairs. China lent over $200 billion to Cameroon to dredge and build a deep-sea port. This is critical infrastructure and, as you can see on the map, is a great place for such a service. China loaned another almost $250 billion for a hydroelectric dam and created a malaria research center. Note that all of the dollars we just mentioned were loans, with the exception of the Malaria Institute, meaning China has influence over some of the monetary policies of Cameroon. We also have critics who cite that China acts as a neo-colonial entity in Africa by trading in ways that make poor countries line up behind China on the world stage while flooding their local markets with cheap manufactured goods, which lead to local goods not being able to compete with prices. This causes problems with the local economies in Cameroon and other African nations. In fact, you can go basically anywhere in the world and see China's influence in the manufactured goods market. It has cost many local businesses and employees their livelihoods. So what are the things that Cameroon does to help China? Well, the most recent example is quite fresh. Right before we think there was an outbreak of COVID in China, there was something happening in Hong Kong. For those who don't know or remember, Hong Kong was rather autonomous inside of the borders of China. It was not its own country per se, but did have its own trading regulations and other accords to make it function a little differently than mainland China. In the months leading up to the COVID outbreak, there were many protests in Hong Kong that were pushing back on China. These were starting to get worldwide attention, as were the tanks and militarization of the surrounding areas by the Chinese government. Then the unthinkable happened. COVID was unleashed and the Chinese government had what it needed to justify walking right into Hong Kong and taking who they wanted. This was all under the banner of national safety. This is not the first time security and safety was traded for liberty in China, but maybe it will be the last. The reason I bring this up is not for politics, but rather because Cameroon and many of the African nations with like ties to China back China in the Hong Kong national security law. Many nations opposed this and stood with the people of Hong Kong. This security law gave China more power to absorb Hong Kong. Another pressingly relevant issue, especially with the Olympics, is the One China policy. This policy states, just like it sounds, there is only one sovereign state of China rather than multiple. This is kind of like Wales and Great Britain, but we also must talk about the One China principle, which is nothing like Wales and Great Britain. Ever heard of a country called Taiwan? You may have items in your home from Taiwan. In the One China principle, Taiwan is a part of China just like Georgia is a state in the US, with the exception that Georgia has its own state rights and constitution. Most of Africa and the Middle East stand with China, which many believe has to do with the money that China banks lend to their developing nations. Look at this map. You see, all of the countries that are not red or orange have economies that can for the most part stand alone and have diplomatic trades with other countries, while many developing and struggling economies, the orange ones, are right in line with China in just about every political move the Chinese government makes. This map highlights the countries that support the One China principle. It's in a direct relation with the economic policies. Taiwan seeks to be an independent nation, but do not have much support due to much geopolitical pressure to side with China. There are many things that we could get into, such as China creating islands throughout the South China Sea and encroaching on Vietnam, but those are articles for another video and probably another channel. So as you can see, a country like Cameroon is somewhat hogtied by China. The promise of a better day lies in the infrastructure that China is willing to lend to. All Cameroon has to do is stand by China in their geopolitical position. Now that you understand this relationship between Cameroon and China, we can get to this fascinating coin. On the front, you are welcomed by the legendary coat of arms of Cameroon. A fun fact, the two axe heads that you see on top bundled in sticks are actually an ancient Etruscan and eventually Roman tradition symbolizing jurisdiction. What I love is that everything has some sort of texture. Even the shield has a little hammered look to it. Love the front and think it should score a 7. When we go to the back, we understand now what we're looking at. It's a beautiful rendition of classic Chinese art from the Ming Dynasty. If you are an art lover or lover of Asian culture, you should pause this video and order one of these as soon as possible. This is a stunning representation of what we saw by the Metropolitan Museum of Art display and scores a 9, though it has some sketchy ties to China policy. Now we get to mintage. We have a fairly low mintage of 25,000, which is my sweet spot, scoring this coin a healthy 8 out of 10. When we look to cultural significance, this coin would be a 10 if it was from China. Unfortunately, it's not. I will consider the diplomatic relations in the coat of arms, which lands it still at a 6. When we talk about collectability, I have to admit, first I did not find it highly collectible, and when I saw the mintage amount and found the artwork from the Ming Dynasty that mirrored half of this coin, I was very surprised. The only detraction is a possible connection with some of China's policies and the unknown marketplace seeing that as a positive or negative thing. I do not have any idea on that, so it does score an 8 from me. Now we must talk about uniqueness. This is a coin with a dragon on it. It seems a dime a dozen in that regard. What sets it apart, though, is that this dragon actually is taken from historical art. I personally think that this kind of genre should be done more. Can you imagine a coin with Rembrandt, Raphael, or Picasso? That would be amazing. Anyway, there are not any coins quite like this, though it kinda seems familiar because we see so many dragon coins, but I do score it an 8. This brings our total to 48 out of 60, meaning that this coin is highly recommended by me, though it just missed the mark of an elite coin. In conclusion, take the controversy as you will. Maybe in 10 years we will know if the ties between these two countries has truly helped Cameroon. I hope it does, but we currently do not know. What I do know is that the creators of this artwork were long gone before any of the politics of China were implemented, and the historical precedent of this coin is top-notch. All of these reasons make me recommend this coin to any collector, so take it or leave it, but either way, thank you for watching, and remember to stay classy and current with the culture of currency.